Good evening from New York. This is Tuesday, October 25th, 378 days until the 2012 presidential election. Occupy protesters under assault in Oakland, California, under pressure in Baltimore and Atlanta. The Baltimore camp declared illegal by the mayor's office. The Atlanta camp edging towards a possible confrontation with police, while Occupy protesters in New York have been offered a strange deal to make their arrest for disorderly conduct go away, along with the protests, perhaps. Fifth story on the countdown. Just 9 days ago, Mayor Jean Quan marched with Occupy Oakland. Overnight, though, she sent hundreds of police in riot gear to raid its protest camp headquarters. The claim, it had become unsanitary, unsafe with fire hazards, that police and firemen had been denied access, that people had been hurt, that Occupy Oakland was, quote, it was clear that there was escalating violence. That was certainly true this morning. Around 4:30 Pacific time, Oakland police, joined by reinforcements from at least 10 other police agencies, moved in on the Occupy protesters. Police fired tear gas and non-lethal beanbag rounds, reportedly after protesters threw bottles at them. Also reports of rubber bullets being used. This footage shot by the first guest on this program, Fatima Mojahidi. We will hear from her shortly. At least 85 people were arrested, mostly for unlawful assembly and illegal lodging. The massive police presence and use of tear gas stunned several of the protesters.
Yeah, it was extremely frightening. I mean, it looked like something out of, a military war.
I work in the West Bank in Palestine, and I've seen really heavy force, and this is a contender for the weight of the force.
After the raid, the city's interim police chief, Howard Jordan, admitted to the police violence.
We fired or used tear gas in one particular incident. There were also beanbag rounds that were fired. There were no injuries reported at this point to either demonstrators, arrestees, or police officers.
At least one protester in the hands of police disputed that.
I was tackled. I was tackled like a football tackle. It's just completely ridiculous. I was broadsided. This is police violence right here.
More and more startling video from Oakland in a moment. Occupy Baltimore also at risk tonight now that Mayor Stephanie Rawlings Blake has determined that overnight camping, which is to say occupation of downtown McKeldin Plaza, must end, even though the city has designated that plaza as an official protest site. Protesters who refuse to leave have been told they will be evicted for trespass. In Atlanta, efforts to avert a confrontation underway. A group of 24 clergy meeting tonight with Occupy protesters in hopes of working out a solution with the city. This after Mayor Kasim Reed announced on Monday that he was revoking his executive order allowing the occupation following an unauthorized weekend hip-hop concert and the protesters' use of an equally unauthorized diesel generator. Protest organizer Tim Franzen said he was prepared to be arrested but hoped to avoid a crisis caused by the mayor's action.
Revoking it at the last minute, if anything is going to create a crisis, that's going to be the thing that created a crisis.
Fortunately, a different sort of crisis was averted tonight when a man carrying a loaded AK-47 assault rifle was spotted at Occupy Atlanta. The man reportedly told police he supported the protesters' rights to free assembly, claimed he was making a point about the First and Second Amendments to the Constitution. The protesters reportedly were the ones who alerted police to his presence. And elsewhere in the Occupy movement, a tweet minutes ago from Occupy Nashville, quote, "Get down to the plaza now." You're seeing Chicago now. That's an error. Rumor is cops are shutting us down around 6 p.m. In Chicago, a story we highlighted last night, nurses from the National Nurses United Union joining forces again with Occupy Chicago to protest 130 arrests in the city's Grant Park on Sunday. In New York, Occupy Wall Street demonstrators marched on New York's Department of Education to support the Save Our Schools group, opposed to charter schools and other corporate education reforms. Occupy Wall Street also showed New York's Daily News, a warehouse stocked with sleeping bags, blankets, heavy coats, and other cold weather gear, preparations for winter occupation in Zuccotti Park. New York Mayor Mike Bloomberg may have other ideas about that. The New York Daily News also reports half of those arrested for disorderly conduct in the city have been offered a deal. Charges dismissed unless you're arrested in the following 6 months for, say, disorderly conduct during a protest, in which case charges are restored. A very clever and perhaps subtle way to get people to stop protesting. Let's go first to Oakland. Fatima Mojahidi was at the Occupy Oakland site at the Frank Ogama Plaza when police moved in with tear gas this morning, and she's been good enough to join us tonight. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having us.
Where were you? What did you see last night?
I was in the plaza. I got the text at 3 a.m., so I came and joined back my friends. I've been going there almost every night, and we started walking around the block to see where the police were, and then it took a while for us to see them. We had reports earlier that people had seen them, and then at 4:30 is when I would say at least 50 plus vehicles started pulling up, including armored vehicles, many different kinds of police. It wasn't just local police. I even saw Pleasantville Police Department there, Sheriff's Department, and they started making formations. They had guns, they had tear gas, and they started firing at the camp.
Police said, and admitting to use of all that kind of force, they said that none of that was used until protesters started throwing bottles at them. Do you have any witness account that can either confirm or deny that conclusion by the cops?
I personally did not witness that, so I can't say that that's true. What I did witness is that police fired right at the camp, like at eye level. It wasn't even like up in the air, so people could have gotten hurt from the firing.
The mayor of Oakland and others have complained about fire hazards, sanitation, food storage, unsafe structures built in the plaza, and noise. To your knowledge, were the complaints legitimate? Were there actual problems at that sort of magnitude that required a complete reversal on her position on Occupy Oakland in a matter of 9 days?
We have been feeding hundreds of poor and hungry Americans with very little resources. We've been providing free schooling, we've been doing our own workshops, educational forums, free childcare. So we're doing the best that we can with very limited resources, rather than spending probably hundreds and thousands of dollars like they did last night. The city could have better used a fraction of that money to make our kitchen up to code. This is the best that we could do as ordinary people trying to help people who are suffering in this country. There's college graduates who don't have jobs. I have friends who have PhD that don't have jobs, and they do go hungry. So if they're going to criminalize feeding people in this country, then I don't know what's going to be criminalized next.
Last question. The city administrator also said today the plaza is going to be reopened. They're going to clean it, and it's going to be open between the hours of 6 a.m. and 10 p.m., but no camping or overnight stays will be permitted. Do you know whether or not Occupy Oakland plans to return anyway?
This movement is a mass movement of the people, and I don't think this movement is going away anytime soon. We are the 99%, and we want economic justice, social justice, environmental justice. We want the so-called war on terror to end. We feel that, spending $460 billion on the war in Afghanistan while people here don't even have jobs, our schools are getting shut down, is ridiculous. So no, this movement is not going anywhere. They can come in with brute force and crush us, but we will continue to stand for our civil liberties and our right to free speech and for justice.
Fatima Mojadedi, the protester with Occupy Oakland, who shot much of the footage you just saw and was present when they raided the camp this morning. Great thanks for your time and for sharing the video with us.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us coverage and giving us a voice.
Of course. Some 340 Occupy Wall Street protesters can avoid serving time, meanwhile, or probation, or a fine if they're willing to go along with an unusual offer from Manhattan District Attorney Cy Vance, Jr. The protesters, among the 750 or so arrested on disorderly conduct charges, most of them in marches at Brooklyn Bridge on October 1st and a week earlier through downtown Manhattan. The offer, charges dismissed if you stay out of trouble for the following 6 months. Get arrested again at an Occupy protest, say, and the original charges would be restored. One protester at Zuccotti Park, who said he'd been arrested at both marches, didn't think many of the protesters would be interested in the offer.
I highly doubt that anybody would take that, because for the simple fact we're here, we were arrested for no reason in the first place. So who's to say that won't happen again? It's kind of asinine to even offer that.
Kind of simple, it sounds that way. Yetta Kurland is an attorney with the National Lawyers Guild group that's been negotiating with prosecutors over the Occupy Wall Street arrests and the protests.